Welcome everyone, it's Rochelle Wilhite. I'm the designated broker of Best Choice Realty. I've got Shannon on the webinar with me and Nick Minke, as well as Jerry K. LaRue. So I'm in great shape. Shannon will be facilitating the meeting. So if you do have questions throughout the presentation, if you want to send a message in the chat, you're welcome to do that. And we will just go ahead and get started in just another minute. Before we get started, you may want to have a calculator because this session is going to be a little bit interactive when I get to about 5:45, 5:50, and want to make sure that you have a calculator ready to go so that you can actually do the exercise. We're going to actually practice a more complicated 35E example. So have your calculator ready to go and we'll get started here in another minute. I think we got all the people logged in. Thank you, Shannon. So many of you have had questions about 35E, and I don't want you to be scared of the 35E because you might need the 35E as a tool to win. We are seeing some winning offers come through our office, and it is because of the 35E that these buyers agents have become successful and winning the offer. So I want you to be comfortable. Even if you're a new broker, you might have to review this again and again until you get it. But I do want to kind of just do a part 2 of what I did already from last week so that you can expand your knowledge and learn how to do an escalation. So I'm gonna have Shannon put up the escalation on the screen so we can just talk about the escalation. It's Form 35E. So what the escalation addendum is a tactic. Now, not all the time would you want to use a 35E, but you may want to use it if you are in a multiple offer situation. What this is a way to say, I'm willing to beat any other competing offer by a certain amount up to a cap price, and that goes in section 1. The problem that you guys have is you're getting so nervous about number 2 and number 3. So if we want to just kind of table number 1 being that that's just the way an escalation is, and we're going to kind of give you some more information tonight about term 2 and term 3, and then give you an example, I think it'll make a lot more sense. The more you practice, the more you talk about this, the easier it becomes. So if you look at section 2, it says a competing offer must be a complete copy of a bona fide arm's length written offer. Arm's length meaning it's like you couldn't just have your friend in the office write up another deal. It has to be arm's length, and it has to be a bona fide complete contract. It cannot be just pages here or there. It has to be complete. And you guys, this was the same as the old way. Number 1 and number 2 didn't change, but a lot of you maybe were a little bit sloppy, or some of the other brokers you work with at other companies were sloppy and they didn't provide you with a competing offer. And all of that is very important to go over as you're learning the new 35E. So it says in section B, provides for a closing no later than 60 days if not filled out. I've advised that if you're a newer broker, just always put the 60 days in. But if you're really going up against cash buyers or offers that can close quick, you may have a strategy, or your buyers may instruct you to change that so that you're only competing with offers that are cash offers, or only competing with offers that are financed that have short-term dates. So again, that would be where you may want to play with this section here on term 2. However, you could lose it though for your buyer. Let's say you put a number like say 20 days, and the other escalations, they couldn't use those to escalate yours. It will make more sense when we go through an example, but that is something to keep in mind as to what you put in term 2. If you leave the default, that's usually the safest way if you're going to use an escalation. But if you're dealing with 20, 30, I heard of somebody had 42 offers on one property, you may want to use the 35E and actually fill this in so it weeds out some of those lower, or those offers that really shouldn't be used to compete. Then you want to go into number 3, where it says competing offer requires an escalation. Seller's escalation of this offer shall not be effective unless it is accompanied, this is added, accompanied by a complete copy of the competing offer. So if you can highlight line 24, This is the part where I get very nervous, and Jerry Kay and we've seen you guys do this, where you send over the mutual contract and then maybe the next day, or maybe you have your transaction coordinator send it later that evening. It has to be at the time of mutual acceptance that competing offer is sent over. So you want to, if you can, bundle it like I shared with you in the video, bundle it with your mutual acceptance, put it at the very back so that nobody could really dispute the fact that you put it, and it was, the competing offer was included with the entire package. It says in line 26, if the seller fails to provide an offer to be used as the competing offer to the buyer at the time of mutual acceptance, then the buyer shall be entitled to purchase the property at the non-escalated purchase price. I don't know about you, but I have seen offers that escalate $50,000, $60,000, $75,000, and I never want to have an issue with one of you escalating or think that you've escalated and you didn't provide a copy of the entire purchase and sale agreement of that competing offer, and all of a sudden we have an issue. So that is super important. If you're watching this video on YouTube, or if you're getting the train tonight, you really keep a keen eye, especially if you're a listing agent, that you must provide the full offer, the competing offer, in order for that to escalate. If you do not, then you have a provision, section B, and we're going to talk about that. I want Jerry Kay and I, just if she could unmute her line so we can talk about section B, because we kind of debated it in the office, and I thought it was a good debate that all of you guys need to hear as well. But if you look at this and we have a competing offer, and if the offer provided by the seller does not qualify as a competing offer, then you have this 3-day, 2-day thing. So if Shannon, if you could just flip the screen and go to the offer that came in, and we're going to pretend like this offer was written on, after we got the new contract. So we're not like putting this, airing somebody's dirty laundry here tonight. But if you could put that up on the screen, Shannon, so they can see where we represented a buyer, and we have to kind of make a decision on whether we want to trigger this competing offer clause or not. And so we want to have that discussion. So if you could put that up on the screen, Shannon, the offer that we have, that would be great. So here's an offer that is the offer that we represented the buyer, and then the seller was represented by RSVP. And so we have this offer. It is great. $750 is the listing price, the purchase price. And if you scroll down, I think the very last page, Shannon, is the escalation. If you could go to the very last page, that would be awesome. And then I'm going to just open it up to Jerry Kay, because Jerry Kay, you reviewed this offer. What did you kind of think about this one?
What's interesting about this, you guys, is, okay, you guys hear, that's good, but Rochelle doesn't hear. You could see that the listing agent was kind of working really hard on behalf of her seller, because you can see on this page that their highest price was $975, and then it changed to $1,025,000. And we're going to show you the competing offer, which it also had this change before they were accepted. So that was my first one, because this, I don't hardly ever see this, but I'm sure it's happening out there in this market. So that was my first, like, oh my goodness. And then my other one was, I remember the initial price on this was $750,000. So we're already, 240,000 over. And then it uses its escalator. So, according to them, it escalated up to $1,015,000. And I was like, okay, so now it's time to go figure out, is this a bona fide offer? And is this a complete offer? And so Shannon, if you scroll a little bit, so they did what Rochelle showed you guys last week, which was they bundled what they perceived to be the competing offer, like it's tacked right in there. The only problem is it's 3 pages. So 35E, and then the 2 extra pages of their Windermere kind of like optional clauses, where they're showing that they're doing a non-refundable, earnest money, they're waiving some things. But the first page of the contract isn't, the whole contract's missing. So number one, it's not a bona fide offer. Yeah. Number two, I don't even know if it's expired. It could be an expired offer too. We don't know. It could have a 22B in there where they're selling their house I mean, I don't know. They didn't supply the full offer, right? So yeah, that's a big problem. But here is showing you reference where they got this client to also up their highest price. So off of that, that's where they went back and started doing their calculations. So at this point, you know, ever since, I mean, really, this was the rule anyways. But we're going to be a lot more stringent on it, and a lot of other firms are too. That if that doesn't come over, we need to talk about did this escalate or not? So
Right.
does the seller think this escalate?
When you see this, and then you're like, okay, we have this provision now in our new contract that says notice to seller the competing offer. If the offer provided by the seller does not qualify, in this case, let's just say that it doesn't. I mean, we're just using this as an example, right, of something that came over. We would have 3 days to deliver the 35, the notice, the 35, what is EN, right? We have 35 EN we could deliver. And then if we provide that, then the seller has the right to terminate on the 35 EN. If you go down to the next page, Shannon, go down to 3, I think, yeah, right here, it says if the parties shall use the escalation notice to, they fill in the section, and then basically they have the right to terminate. The buyers shall be entitled to the purchase price, but they have the right to terminate in that last section. I think it's term 5. Is that correct? Yeah, so here's your 35 EN.
There we go. Yeah.
There we go. So you have the notice, you give them the notice. So, I mean, in this case with Jerry Kay, where she notices that there's not a bona fide offer, we could send over this notice of non-competing offer, and then the buyers would have buyer's notice of new purchase price. You could fill in that's the correct, you know, or we don't even know on that one. But then the sellers, basically, if you look at the very bottom here, there's only just 2 choices. They basically get to, they provided an escalation and they came to an agreement on price, or they don't. And then the seller gives them back, the buyers, their earnest money, and the seller has to terminate the agreement. So when you kind of know what the repercussions are for making the mistakes, Jerry Kay, in this situation, what do you think would be the best solution when we have a situation where we don't have a bona fide competing offer? What would be, I think, the most ethical, or, you know, to create a win-win situation for the parties? I mean, certainly I don't think our buyer's agent wants to lose this deal. I mean, it escalated. Right. There was multiple offers. What do you think?
And if Rochelle said, I mean, we also have some people that are submitting offers and they're getting like the buyer's remorse, you know, a day or 2. I mean, Rochelle and I was dealing with one today, even the very next day, it's like, I want to get out, you know, and I have non-refundable earnest money and yada, yada. So maybe your buyer does want to get out. So maybe this is a case where this is a good time to get them out, you know, because we say it really didn't escalate or it really wasn't bona fide, and we'll get out that way. But for the most times, we had every intent of buying the house. Otherwise, we wouldn't have had the highest competing price on our 35E, right? So, you know, it's not, I think the biggest part is that we need to come to terms and we need to have a win-win situation. Okay. Because if you send over your notice, you run the risk of the seller just walking away.
Yeah.
When you could be having, instead of sending a notice, maybe you have a conversation, that it starts as a conversation, letting the listing agent know, hey, what's going on? This is what we see. You know, it really didn't escalate, but we really still want to stay in the deal. Right. You know, and then you guys come, it's kind of like maybe you have to renegotiate again.
Right. So it's really getting the designated brokers involved. In this case, with the one we didn't have bona fide, Jerry Kay, we both got on the phone with the designated broker, had a great conversation with him, and we're working through that matter right now. But that was happening a lot. That's why the MLS and why the Forms Committee decided to go and increase or enhance the 35E and provide this notice, because we didn't want to have, you know, buyers feeling like they were obligated to buy at certain unbona fide offers and having these types of conflicts between the firms. So I actually love this piece, but you do need to ask questions. So you do need, before you come to Jerry Kay or I and ask us, should we enforce that section 3B? Be sure you've had a conversation with your buyer saying, hey, do you want to? Or do you want to exit this contract? Are you kind of over it before you come to us? And then we'll advise on when we could send the notice and make sure it gets done and properly communicated. I think that part makes a lot of us very nervous and very scared to not, mess it up. So if you're a listing agent, if you're not sure about how to fill out that worksheet, we're going to go through an example right now. And if you still are confused, your math's not adding up right, then you're going to probably want to just take some more training and, utilize a managing broker or a designated broker to help you overcome some of this, because they're not going away. You guys, people are still going to be using the 35E. So we kind of talked about that slide already, what a buyer's offer is. Let's go to the next slide. So what if the seller's math is wrong? We kind of went over that the buyer has 3 days by default. I would leave the defaults as they are. That's perfectly fine, right, Jerry Kay? We talked about this.
Yeah.
There's no need to make confusion. I mean, if you want to come down to 1, I don't think there's any harm. I think people are really nervous about this section, but leave the default the way it is for now. And seller has 2 days to terminate if you give them that notice. So I think leave that all alone. Let's go to the next slide. So let's practice some more. So you guys have some examples of what we have to deal with. So offer number 1 this is actually a real sample, $400,000 offer with a $1,000 escalation. Yep, be sure you have your calculator. And it has a cap. So the cap, that escalated price, so it says we will beat any legitimate written offer by $1,000 up to a cap of 450. So that's the top of that. That's that second price in section 1 of 35E. The seller contributes, though, in the entire contract, the seller is contributing $10,000 for the roof replacement. And buyer is willing to pay seller's closing costs of $3,000, whether it's excise tax or title and escrow, it doesn't really matter. Buyer is going to credit $3,000. Seller has already agreed to pay $10,000 for the roof replacement. So that's already in the offer. So that's offer number 1. Offer number 2 comes in, and there's many offers, but offer number 2 is the one that I think that the seller should go with. And so we're going to work the math out on offer number 2. But offer number 2 said their purchase price is $420, escalation of $5,000 with a cap price of $435. Well, certainly we like the cap price of offer number 1, but we got to make sure our math makes sense. So offer number 2, seller pays the buyer closing costs. They need some closing costs of $5,000. And the buyer's commission was reduced. We are seeing this, you guys. We're seeing creativity at all levels, Jerry Kay. It makes us go, oh my gosh, these people. But the buyer's commission was reduced from $12,000 to $5,000. The buyer's agent's getting extremely exhausted with this buyer and just wants to get the deal. So they are going ahead and chipping in on their commission and reducing it from 12 to 5. And it's in the contract. So it's written into 22D other, right, Jerry Kay? That's where we sometimes see it. Or a Form 34. If you're a listing agent, you better be checking those pages because they'll slip it in there. They'll slip it in 22D, like other, or they'll put it in a 34, or sometimes I've even seen it put in like the 22A. Like I've seen them write some stuff in there. Be very careful when you're a listing agent. Make sure you review all of the pages. Don't rely on just that email that they send you. You know how they put the email, oh, it's a love letter, and they put the bullet points. Don't rely on that letter or that email. Look at every page that comes through if you're a listing agent. So if you got this type of situation, I guess the question is what is the purchase price? What is offer 1? If we're going to go with offer 1, using offer 2 to escalate, what are we selling the place for? What is that price? So Shannon, if you want to put the poll up, let's let them do their math. You want to go to the next.
How about show them the worksheets?
Yeah.
Show them the worksheet, and then you'll have to come back here.
There we go.
Again. You guys would have had to write down the stuff, but you need to see the worksheet.
And if you want to hover over the worksheet, you can move your worksheet around so you can get back to your worksheet. You probably should have wrote the scenario. So if you have a 35E handy next to it, it's basically all this worksheet is basically the worksheet from the 35E. You want to go back to the other one so that people can get it. Do the math equation correctly. So there's your offer, your scenario. we'll give you a couple minutes to kind of work the math. This one's not as simple as the one I did on the video, right, Jerry Kay? We put a little more complexity in this.
Yeah. And if this poll, like she said, if this little poll sheet thing came up, you can move it around so that it's not over top of your scenario.
So what is the new purchase price? Go ahead and indicate your answer once you do your math.
If anybody needs to see the worksheet again, just let us know.
Nick, I feel like I should be doing like my hand movements, like that video you did, remember? Gotta wait for it. I've done the escalation. How many times have we done escalations, Jerry Kay? I still have to get my calculator out. I don't know.
Oh, me too.
My grandpa could probably do it in his head, right? But my
well, not me. I actually write pluses and minuses on my worksheet so that I know which things I'm reducing and which things I'm adding. Even though it says less and plus, I actually write the plus sign and the minus sign.
That's good. That's a good idea. Yeah, but you shouldn't probably do it in your head. And if your clients are sitting right there, if you're in a situation, which I have been, right, where you have so many offers and you're reviewing, it's exhausting. Just tell them, let me take a break, get some coffee or whatever, and then come, do the calculator. If you need to, it's better to like take screen capture, and send it to me or to Jerry Kay and say, hey, did I do this right? If it's your first time, I don't want you messing up because that's thousands of dollars. I have seen people mess up on Jerry Kay. I mean, you've seen them too with the reviews you've done. Not all of the escalations are done correctly. I would say 25% is done, it's not done correctly. Would you say that? 1 out of 4? I've seen that many.
I mean, it's possible we have more now just because they've added more lines, more of the credits, they've added the seller paid closing costs or something. And we haven't had to do that before. So it's possible we could be making some.
I'd say 10 to 25%. Jerry Kay sees a lot more deals, but I see the worksheets often, zeros go in the wrong place or the competing offer is not correct. The amounts, the escalation amounts are not correct. So you're going to want to, do we have some answers, Shannon? Or are people too nervous to write the answer?
Yeah, we've got some responses coming in. I think we just give it another minute.
What's really tough is when you got those 19 different ones that you're trying to calculate to get that net price, that you're making sure that you're using all, the right competing offer to escalate, on the worksheet.
Yeah, there's a Breakthrough Broker has a kind of a nice little worksheet that I'll send attached to this video as well that I love. I think that's a kind of a spreadsheet that kind of puts it all, you can lay it all out. And that's nice. But again, at the end of the day, you still, if you're a listing agent, you still have an obligation to ensure you have presented all the offers, meaning all the pages. So just another reminder to you, I've said this before in other videos, make sure that if you have that obligation, you could lose your license if you don't do this right. You need to have proof that you have presented. The only way I know when you get 15, 20 offers is to just send them to your client's email address. That way, if anybody says, did you present my offer? You could say, oh, yes, I did. It was offer number 3. It came in at offer number 7, whatever that. So I have proof that I've delivered by sending my seller an email. Now we might sit and discuss and kind of go over the offers, but at least I have provided proof that I have submitted all of the offers to my seller for their consideration. That is your obligation.
Rochelle, I was calling on a deal, working with a client this last week and calling on to see where we were with how many offers somebody had. And what I really don't want to hear from any of our agents, because I know we don't do this,
right?
Is the gal was like, I know I have, 5 offers, but I haven't looked at them yet.
Oh my
And I'm
God.
like, I wanted to say what? Well, because I'm presenting them. I have an appointment with the seller tomorrow at 3, and I haven't looked at them yet.
Yeah.
Well, that's a big no. Like, it doesn't matter that she hasn't looked at them yet. She has an obligation to send them to her seller.
That's right. And she has, in the contract, it's kind of vague. I wish they would clean that part up. It says time is of the essence. It's a real estate clause that time is of the essence. Come on, if you received it and you wait 2 days, 3 days, 4 days to send it to your seller, then time is not of the essence, I would say on that. So yeah, I hope you guys aren't doing that as well. All right, let's get the, wow. So we definitely have some learning to go through. Let's go through the worksheet. It looks like, is that right? 29% of you got it correct?
That's correct. The answer is 445.
All right, so let's go through the math so you can check your work if you are trying to get this correct. Yeah, so a lot of you thought it was 438. Some of you thought it was 442, but the answer is 445. So let's go through the worksheet. I need to kind of move my screen around here. So the purchase price of the competing offer was 430. Jerica, you're gonna have to help me here. I got my screen all messed up.
Yeah, the purchase price of so the maximum purchase price of the competing offer. So that's what they were going to escalate to. That's the maximum price is 435. And less credits to the buyer in the competing offer. So you're still looking at, seeing we don't have the scenario up, but that's kind of hard to.
But they should.
So that would be the minus 5,000. This is where what I'm doing on my own is where I'm writing minus and pluses, because that helps me a lot.
Okay.
So 435 minus 5 is 430 plus 7 plus credits to the seller in the competing offer. So the competing offer's net purchase price is 437. So that's where we're starting from. And then we go to our offer, this offer, and they had an escalation amount of 1,000. But there were credits to the buyer in this offer of 10,000.
For the roof, right? That was the roof.
Yep.
Okay.
And then less credits to seller was 3,000. So I think where some of you might have gotten confused, or I don't know, is that $7,000 credit in the competing offer, because remember, there was no 7,000 number there. It went from 12,000 to 5,000. So 12 minus 5 is 7,000.
Okay. That was the confusing part for everybody. So let's go back.
Some of the,
Shannon, go back to the actual scenario.
that was the selling office's commission. His compensation was going to change from 12,000 to 5,000, which is a difference of $7,000.
You had to subtract. You have to use your calculator and figure that out. Or my grandpa, he's like, he'd know that right off the head. You should know 12 minus 5. Okay. So good thing you guys didn't make the mistake of using just the competing offer. You can use the cap. So that 435 is the number you're using. You're not using the 420, you're using the 435 of the competing offer. And then you're doing your math from that. So some of our newbies have made that mistake before, thinking they cannot use the cap. If you have 5 offers that all have caps, one at 435, one at 425, at all these the various caps, you can use the cap as the one that's competing. You don't have to use the price.
No, but when that's competing, the 435 was the cap, and then we had some other credits and stuff, which put us at 437.
So you may have to do the worksheet, to see if that's the right competing offer. If you have multiple offers, if you have several, you might have to do the worksheet on all of them just to see what would be the competing offer net purchase price to the seller, so you're getting the right one. So it's more advanced than just a straightforward 35E. Let's go to the next slide, Shannon. I think there was one more, maybe. No, I think we're good. So there was not another example. I think we're good. We're
well, right. Yeah, we're up at our time, but
wow. It's
That went fast.
I know. Well, good job, you guys that got the answer correct. Any questions about the 35E or things you guys have run into in the field? Unmute your line or just send a message.
Can I ask a question?
Sure, go for it.
So it seems like sometimes as a listing agent, what we can do is when we send out a, I don't know, counter offer or just a mutual along with the competing offer bona fide in the email, as a counter offer, we can cross off the whole form of 35E, right? And change the purchase price to I don't know, upon agreed one. Would that be a better idea?
As long as the buyers decide that that's okay, a counteroffer requires initial or signature by the other party. So you run the risk that they might get kind of nervous, right, Valen, about, ooh, I don't know if I want to go that high, or maybe call your bluff, right? They might think you're not using a competing offer. But yes, that is a strategy that has worked. And depending on the situation, if the buyers are willing to pay it and they're willing to initial or the counter offer gets signed, yes, you can remove the 35E altogether. That is something a lot of people have done that before, right, Jerry Kay? We've seen a lot of people.
Especially when because the new form 35E just, the part that mentions buyer has a chance, like default 3-day, 2-day thing, that just confused me because if it's an offer with no contingency, then what's that considered? Like, would that be a kind of contingency if they're picky and they pick out some mistake on calculation? That sounds like still like a way out for the buyer, right?
But you have to do it right. So it's putting your it's making the listing agents do the calculation correctly. So avoids going back to asking for a counteroffer to be signed. I mean, there are some fantastic deals. There's one today that came in, it was like listed at around 625, went all the way up to 800. I mean, do we want to say no to that and counter them? No, we probably just want to accept it because of the escalations that we received. So in that case, Valen, if you don't want to have a counteroffer having to be signed, then just make sure your worksheet's filled out correctly. And it's not a provision unless it applies. So I think that's the confusion maybe you were asking about is.
Well, I have a strategy so that you're not countering, because that is the fear. If you counter, the buyer might not sign. You might lose the buyer, right? Because you countered. So what I would suggest is that you prepare the worksheet and you send the buyer's agent your worksheet with your competing offer in an email. You're just sending them, you're not sending them the whole contract signed or anything. You're just sending them the competing offer and they're saying, see, this is what I came up with on this worksheet. Do you agree that this would have escalated to this amount? And you're having a conversation and they go, yeah, no, I see what you come to. That would have, okay, we'd like to remove the 35E. So would you please rewrite your offer? Like make the buyer change the front page, cross off and send it back over so that your seller is not countering.
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay.
And that's totally legal. As long as you get the signatures on the counteroffer, you'll be mutual. So Valen, yes.
And for the 35E, if we as a listing agent, we calculate it wrong in some way, but when the buyer fill the form back in 3 days, they have to prove like their way to calculate it. They cannot just be moody saying that, you know what, you calculate wrong, I just want to buy at this price. They cannot do that, right? They just have to prove like the way they calculate it.
Correct. And they will probably
the important part,
unless you don't have a bona fide offer, unless you have a totally not even a competing offer, like with the wrong expired date or something, right?
Right, that could be too. It could be you're paying just the purchase price because you really botched the job as a listener.
I know, and that not me, but that happens to, I heard the story about the things and it happened to the listing agent, and I just feel sorry why they calculated so off, of the.
Right.
And the worst part is if the buyer sends you that notice and you as the listing agent and the seller don't respond in time, because that's when you can't, if you miss the deadline, I think it's 2-day default deadline, you're
Mhm.
moving forward at what the buyer's new calculation.
Exactly. Mhm.
Yep,
Okay.
we've had some close calls. So, Alan, I appreciate the question. Did we answer the question for you so you know how to proceed?
Yes, and also I understand the perspective of the, it's to kind of monitor the way listing agent does the job,
Yeah.
Then I,
Wonderful. Well, we got a lot of good content. Thank you, Jerry Kay, for your example and sharing with us, and for Shannon putting the poll together. We still have a lot of learning, as we could see from the answer. So we'll probably take this up again. Let's let another month go by, and then we'll actually do another segment on this. I would say let's give it another, like, April, mid-April, we'll have this kind of call again and see if we feel differently about the climate and using the 35E, and probably have some other examples that we can show of mistakes or questions that come up that might help all of you. So thanks again for jumping on, and we'll catch you again next week.